Have you ever noticed how almost everything you watch these days feels, well, familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been pulled straight out of your childhood, maybe, even if you weren't actually alive back then.
Right.
Or, okay, get this. Did you know that 75% of people, like consumers, are more likely to buy something if an ad makes them feel nostalgic?
Wow, 75%.
Yeah, and that's definitely not an accident. It's pretty calculated.
Hmm.
So today we're going on a deep dive into what we're calling the age of infinite reboots.
Okay.
You'll discover the surprising psychological, cultural, and economic forces driving Hollywood's obsession with the past.
It really does feel like an obsession sometimes.
Totally. And by the end of this, you'll know something about modern entertainment that, honestly, 99% of people probably don't. Why those reboots and franchises keep appearing and, what it truly means for the stories we tell and maybe the stories we actually want to hear.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Our mission today is really to unpack how our collective past is actively reshaping our cultural future, one familiar storyline at a time. So yeah, settle in. This should be pretty interesting.
Looking forward to it.
So think about your own experience, right? Scrolling through, I don't know, Netflix or whatever service you use.
Yep. Done plenty of that.
How often do you pause on a title that just feels right? Maybe it's a remake or spin-off or just a show that's kind of soaked in the vibe of the 80s or 90s.
All the time. It's almost instinctive.
Right. And that feeling, it isn't just, a happy memory popping up. It's your brain actually doing something pretty fascinating.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting from a psychological standpoint. When we bump into these nostalgic triggers, could be a song, a look, a character, anything really.
Like the synth music in Stranger Things?
Exactly like that. Our brains don't just pull up the data file.
Right.
They actively reconstruct the memory. And here's the key thing, that reconstruction tends to be, well, overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, there's some great research by Dr. Konstantin Sedekides on this. He highlights how nostalgia really boosts our mood, makes us feel more connected to others, lifts self-esteem, and this is crucial. It creates what he calls approach motivation.
Approach motivation. Okay, what does that mean exactly? You want to approach the TV.
Well, sort of. It's that deep, almost magnetic urge to engage with that nostalgic thing again.
Yeah.
Like you hear a song from high school.
Oh, yeah. Instant reaction.
Right. You don't just remember it. You feel this pull to listen, maybe sing along, maybe even look up old pictures from back then.
Yeah.
That impulse, that desire to reconnect and immerse yourself, that's approach motivation. It's a drive to seek out those comforting past feelings.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. And yeah, Stranger Things is the perfect example of using that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It doesn't just sprinkle in 80s references. It completely rebuilds that whole aesthetic world. Every little thing feels like a designed nostalgic trigger. They really seem to crack some kind of code.
They absolutely did. And what's really wild here, and speaks to this idea of cultural memory, is that these triggers work even if you weren't around in the 80s.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Yeah. Research shows something like 68% of Gen Z consumers born way after the 80s still react positively to throwback marketing for eras they never lived through.
Wow. Okay.
So it shows nostalgia isn't just about your personal memories locked away in your head. It's tapping into this powerful, shared cultural memory. It's like a story passed down through movies, music, maybe even family stories, kind of transcends your own life experience.
A cultural echo. I like that. So, okay, we get the individual pull of nostalgia. It feels good. It connects us. But how did that feeling turn into this giant industry of universe building? We've gone way past just making a sequel or two.
Right. It's a whole different scale now.
So how did that happen? How did a simple sequel become this sprawling thing?
Well, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, is really the textbook example here.
Yeah.
Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, they were just making superhero films one after another.
No, it felt planned, really planned.
Exactly. They deliberately engineered what they first called a Marvel Cinema Universe. It was designed right from the start for basically indefinite expansion.
Okay. And how'd they pull that off? What were the tricks?
Well, a few key things. They had a master plan, like a 10-plus year roadmap, plotting out how stories would connect way down the line.
Wow.
They used an omni-channel approach, introducing characters or plot points across movies, TV shows, even comics sometimes, so you're always getting little pieces. And then there was this thing called fractal systemic design.
Okay, fractal systemic design. That sounds complex, like math class. Break that down for us.
It sounds a bit much, but the idea is actually kind of cool. Think of it like a tree. Each branch, a movie or a show, can kind of live on its own, tell its own story, right? Beginning, middle, end.
Okay.
But all those branches connect back to the main trunk. They all contribute to the bigger picture, the whole forest. It allowed them to build out this massive world with tons of characters without every single movie having to carry the weight of the entire saga.
So individual stories, but feeding a larger narrative.
Precisely. It gave them creative freedom within that structure, and it got fans totally hooked, trying to spot all the connections, the Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah. The speculation was intense, and the result, I mean, financially.
Oh, astronomical. Nearly $30 billion globally. But more than that, it created a whole new template. The franchise wasn't just movies anymore. It became this lifestyle ecosystem. Movies, TV, games, theme parks, merch, everything.
A whole universe you could buy into, literally.
Exactly. It totally changed how studios thought about their big properties. But, looking back, did building something that massive, that interconnected, also kind of create its own problems, its own weakness?
That's a great question. Like, did they build something too big to sustain?
Well, you could argue that. They definitely moved past the old, kind of messy way of just making one film at a time. But by creating this world people loved, they also created massive audience expectations. Expectations for newness, for connection, for bigger and bigger stakes.
Yeah, you got to keep topping yourself.
Right. And maybe that's just impossible to keep doing forever.
Yeah.
The demand for constant novelty, tied to this ever-expanding story, could definitely lead to people feeling, well, overwhelmed.
Which brings us right to where things feel like they are now. Because here's the twist, right? The very things that made these franchises so huge seem to be causing this franchise fatigue everyone talks about. You might feel it yourself. I know I do sometimes. You see another trailer for like the 5th spinoff of something, and instead of excitement, it's just a sigh. Like, oh, great, another one.
And that feeling, it's showing up in the numbers now. They're pretty sobering, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, only about 29% of U.S. consumers say they actively keep up with most of the entries in a franchise now. That's a big drop.
Wow. Only 29%.
And 56% say too many of these releases just feel repetitive, like they're watching the same story over and over.
Yeah, I can see that.
But maybe the biggest number is this. 62% of audiences now say they actually prefer original stories.
62%. Okay, that's significant. That feels like a real shift.
It really does. It suggests people are maybe getting tired of the familiar.
And even Marvel, right? The architects of this whole thing, they seem to be feeling it too.
Definitely. Interest seems to be softening. Only about 24% of their audience says they're eagerly anticipating the next release now.
Oof, 24%.
Yeah. And you look at films like The Marvels, Eternals, Ant-Man 3, they underperformed, both with critics and at the box office. It sparked all this talk about superhero fatigue. Has the bubble burst?
Right. Is the grand experiment hitting a wall?
Well, directors Joe and Anthony Russo, who made some of the biggest Marvel hits, like Endgame, they talk about a big generational divide.
Okay, what do they mean by that?
They point out that older audiences, maybe people our age or older, grew up with appointment viewing. You planned to go see a movie, you waited for the next episode.
Right, event television, event movies.
Exactly. But younger generations, they grew up with streaming, everything on demand. It's more like, I want it now, I want to process it now, and then boom, on to the next thing.
Instant gratification culture meets long-form storytelling.
Pretty much. And that tension, that clash between wanting commitment and wanting instant consumption leads to what they call narrative exhaustion.
Narrative exhaustion. I feel that in my bones sometimes, that feeling of, ugh, I can't keep up, or even I don't want to.
Exactly. It's not just annoyance. It's like a genuine drain. So the question becomes, if audiences are getting tired of these endless, linked-up franchises, what's Hollywood's next move?
Okay, so if franchise fatigue is real and people are craving original stories, what's the logical next step for Hollywood? It seems kind of paradoxical, but what we're actually seeing is this huge surge in reboots, remakes, and reimaginings.
Right. Just when you think they'd pivot to originals.
Exactly. But this isn't just like desperately squeezing the last drop out of old ideas. There's a real economic logic behind it. A powerful one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, consider this. Nostalgic content apparently gets twice the emotional response in ads compared to non-nostalgic stuff.
Twice.
Brands that use nostalgic packaging saw like a 16% jump in sales. And get this, YouTube views for compilations of old retro commercials went up 54% in just 1 year recently.
Wow. So the past isn't just comforting, it's bankable.
It's basically a gold mine.
Yeah, the economics are hard to argue with, but You know, for a reboot to really land, it needs more than just triggering that flicker of recognition, right?
Definitely. It can't just be a shallow copy.
Right. There's a film scholar, Dr. Benjamin Thevenin, who makes a really neat comparison. He likens modern remakes to old folktales.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, think about folktales. Every time they're retold, the storyteller adds a new spin, a new detail, reflects the current times a bit. He says the key is how it's done. Is it like community-driven creativity where the story evolves naturally? Or is it just a corporate cash grab designed purely for profit?
And you can usually feel the difference, can't you?
Oh, absolutely.
And when they nail it, it can be amazing. Like Top Gun, Maverick, it wasn't just 80s nostalgia porn.
No, not at all.
It used that familiar vibe to explore stuff about aging, legacy, mentorship. It felt surprisingly deep.
It really did. Or think about Spider-Man. Into the
That's a
Spider-Verse.
fantastic film.
Right. It used the whole multiverse idea not just as a gimmick, but as a genuine creative playground to look at different versions of a hero, celebrating diversity, questioning what being a hero even means.
Yeah, it felt fresh, even though it was based on existing characters. These good ones, they provide something. What was the term you used? Identity validation.
Yeah, identity validation through shared cultural experiences. Basically, when you watch something like Maverick, you're not just watching a film, you're kind of reaffirming a piece of your own cultural past, connecting with others who share those memories. It's a powerful communal thing. Makes you feel seen.
So conversely, when a reboot fails, when it feels flat or worse, kind of insulting, what's going wrong there?
Well, often they fail because they put that surface-level nostalgic recognition above telling a good news story. They feel less like creative acts and more like products spat out by a focus group.
Yeah, corporate focus group products. That nails it. Designed to just push a button, not tell a story.
Exactly. And when they just exploit those cherished memories instead of honoring or reinterpreting them, it backfires. You don't get the warm fuzzies of nostalgia. You get disappointment, maybe even feel a bit betrayed. That's when you hit nostalgia fatigue, like, leave my childhood alone.
Right. Don't mess with the good memories. Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into how different age groups react to all this. Millennials, apparently, really respond to nostalgic marketing. Like 61% say it improves how they see a brand.
Right, that makes sense. They have direct memories of a lot of this stuff.
But then you have Gen Z. They didn't live through the 80s or 90s in the same way, yet, what was it, 68% still respond positively?
Uh-huh.
How does that work? Are they nostalgic for stuff they never experienced?
It's a fascinating phenomenon, often called vicarious nostalgia. Gen Z seems to engage with this older content, almost like cultural artifacts.
Yeah.
Like archaeologists digging up the past.
Okay.
They connect emotionally to periods they only know through media, old films, TV, music, fashion trends resurfacing on TikTok, Think about the whole Y2K aesthetic revival.
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere.
For many Gen Z folks, it's not about personal memory. It's more like exploring and remixing cultural history. Finding an emotional connection to an era experienced secondhand. It's quite different.
That is different. And streaming platforms must play a huge role in that, right? They feel like these giant nostalgia engines.
Absolutely. Their algorithms aren't just passive. They don't just respond to your nostalgia. They actively shape it.
Oh, so?
Well, you watch Stranger Things, and suddenly your whole recommended feed is packed with other 80s movies or shows you might never have looked for otherwise.
Right. They start feeding you the vibe.
Exactly. They can essentially cultivate, maybe even manufacture nostalgia by pushing certain content, creating connections you wouldn't have made on your own. It's a powerful feedback loop. Past trends become present desires, algorithmically driven.
Wow. Okay. And what about taking this global? Does nostalgia travel? Like, we saw Squid Game become this massive worldwide hit.
Yeah, that was a huge example.
It used really specific Korean childhood games and cultural touchstones. How did that connect so broadly?
Well, it showed that while the specifics might be cultural, the games, the clothes, the social anxieties rooted in Korean society, the underlying emotions of nostalgia often translate. Things like childhood memories, innocence lost, fear of being left behind. Those feelings are pretty universal.
The emotional core travels.
Exactly. But it also raises tricky questions, doesn't it? When you take specific cultural artifacts like those games out of their original context for a global audience. Where's the line between appreciation and cultural appropriation?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's definitely a complex conversation.
For sure. It's something creators and audiences are constantly navigating.
Okay, so looking ahead, Is it just going to be endless reboots and franchises forever, or is the cycle maybe starting to shift?
Well, there are signs of change. We're definitely seeing this indie boom revival. Companies like A24 churning out really original stuff.
Like Everything Everywhere All at Once or Past Lives?
Exactly. And remember that stat, 62% of people want original stories. So there's clearly an appetite, maybe even a pushback against the constant familiarity.
Yeah, a desire for something genuinely new.
And we're also seeing this other interesting trend, metamedia nostalgia.
Metamedia? What's that?
It's basically projects that don't just use nostalgia, they actually comment on it. They're self-aware about the whole
What
thing.
about movies about nostalgia?
Kind of. Think Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is drenched in nostalgia for late 60s LA, but also kind of dissects it. Or even that HBO show, The Franchise, which satirizes superhero universes. They're sort of winking at the audience, acknowledging the whole cultural conversation around nostalgia.
Okay, that's pretty meta. But you mentioned something earlier that really stuck with me, this idea of anticipatory nostalgia. That sounds, yeah, mind-bending. Can you unpack that?
It is pretty out there, isn't it? Anticipatory nostalgia is basically the idea that cultural products are being created right now with the specific intention of becoming nostalgic artifacts in the future.
Wait, so they're designing things today to make us miss them tomorrow.
That's the core concept. It's shifting from just looking back and exploiting past hits reactive nostalgia to proactively building future nostalgia into the DNA of content being made now.
How would they even do that?
Well, you could embed certain aesthetics, themes, or even specific lines or musical cues that are designed to resonate deeply later on. Maybe create character arcs intended to feel like the good old days when revisited 10 or 20 years down the line. It's about engineering future longing.
Wow. Okay, that sounds fascinating, but also kind of creepy. A bit manipulative.
It definitely walks that line. The implications are huge. On one hand, maybe it leads to smarter, self-sustaining franchises designed for longevity across generations.
Okay.
On the other hand, yeah, it could mean even more sophisticated ways of tapping into our emotions, leveraging nostalgia with pinpoint accuracy. But maybe, just maybe, it could also empower audiences more, giving us more say in what becomes culturally meaningful over time. The big question is, will we know the difference between genuine connection and something engineered?
That's a heavy question. So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway here? We've gone from why nostalgia feels good in our brains to how it built billion-dollar universes to franchise fatigue, the reboot craze, and now this future nostalgia idea.
Yeah, quite the journey.
It's clear this whole nostalgia thing is way more than just a trend, right? It feels like a fundamental part of how culture works now.
I think that's right. It's about the relationship between our past, present, and future, all tangled up in the stories we consume. But, this eternal return, as some might call it, it doesn't have to just mean endless, boring repetition.
Right.
It could be about finding new ways to explore timeless human themes, using the past not as a crutch, but as a foundation to build something genuinely new and innovative. The real challenge for creators, I think, is to respect that human need for connection and continuity.
Without just endlessly recycling stuff to make a quick buck.
Exactly. Without just commodifying those deep emotional needs we all have.
Yeah. Remember, the most interesting stories, they often come from that tension, right? Between honoring the past and really pushing into the future. So keep questioning what you watch, keep looking for that spark of creativity, and remember nostalgia. It should be fuel for creativity, not a replacement for it.
Well said. A springboard, not a sofa.
Exactly. A springboard, not a sofa. I like that. And speaking of how stories get made and what shapes them, next time on The Deep Dive, we're tackling something equally huge and maybe even more transformative: artificial intelligence.
Ooh, yeah. That's a big one.
We're going to look at how AI is starting to creep into creative decisions in movies, script writing, casting, even visual effects, and what that could mean for the future of human storytelling itself. What happens when the machines start telling the stories?
That's going to be a fascinating conversation.
You definitely won't want to miss what we uncover there. See you next time.